Until the Trumpet Sounds. Chapter 3. The night everything changed. The knock came again. Pregnant Mrs. Okafor froze for a moment and looked toward the door. Her heart was racing. "Who is there?" she asked cautiously. A familiar voice answered immediately. "Madam, it's me, your neighbor." The moment she heard the voice, she recognized it. It was indeed one of their neighbors. She quickly asked again to confirm. "Please, who is it?" The neighbor responded. "Madam, it's me, Stanley." For a brief second, disappointment crossed her face. She had hoped it was her husband returning home. "What are you doing here by this time of the night?" she asked. The neighbor replied quickly. "We brought our phones to charge. There is no light in our compound, and your house is the only one with light." The explanation sounded normal. After all, neighbors often came to Mr. Okafor's house to charge their phones whenever electricity failed in the area. But something still felt strange. Immediately, she remembered her husband's warning. Never open the door for anyone after 7 p.m. She stood there thinking for a bit. Should she open the door? Should she not? As she hesitated, young Godswill stood up from the dining table and walked over. "Mummy, is Daddy back?" he asked hopefully. Like everyone else in the house, he had expected the knock to be his father's. "No, Wills," she replied softly. "Don't worry about it." Trying to be careful, she decided she would only collect the phones through a small opening and lock the door immediately afterward. Slowly, she opened the door slightly. What she saw made her blood run cold. Standing directly behind the neighbor were two armed robbers. One pressed an AK-47 against the neighbor's head. The second pointed a pistol directly at her face. Everything happened within 2 terrifying seconds. Her heart skipped. Her body reacted before her mind could process what she had seen. She immediately slammed the door shut and struggled to lock it. Outside, the armed robbers charged toward the door, pushing with all their strength. Inside, confusion filled the room. The children didn't understand what was happening. Godswill stood frozen. His 2 younger sisters remained seated at the dining table, fear spreading across their faces. The eldest son reacted instantly. The moment he sensed danger, he ran into his room, shut the door, rushed into the bathroom, locked himself inside, and began praying desperately for God's protection. Outside, one of the robbers shouted angrily, "Woman, open this door or we'll shoot." But Mrs. Okafor refused to surrender. Despite being 8 months pregnant, she pushed her entire body against the door, struggling to turn the key. Then, the first gunshot exploded through the night. The sound was deafening. The generator instantly tripped. Darkness swallowed the house. A second later, the generator restarted and the lights flickered back on. Mrs. Okafor screamed. The bullet had pierced through the metal door and torn through her right palm. The bullet narrowly missed Godswill, who was standing beside her. Only God's mercy spared his life. The bullet continued across the room and smashed into the television behind them. Metal fragments from the shattered door flew through the air. Some tore into Godswill's right arm, but he was too terrified to even notice the injury. Blood poured from his mother's hand, yet she refused to let go. She continued fighting to keep the robbers outside. Then she screamed, "Wills, help me push the door." The fear in her voice shook him. Without hesitation, Godswill rushed forward and joined his mother. Together they pushed, harder, harder, harder. Then, the second gunshot rang out. Again, the generator tripped. The lights disappeared, then returned. But this time, the damage was devastating. The bullet pierced through the metal door and struck Mrs. Okafor directly in the face. She screamed with unimaginable pain. Godswill watched in horror. Blood exploded from the right side of her face. One of her eyes was destroyed instantly. His younger sisters burst into uncontrollable tears. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Tears rolled down Godswill's cheeks. His mother was bleeding heavily. Yet somehow, she was still fighting, still pushing, still protecting her children. Summoning the last of her strength, she finally locked the door. The robbers remained outside. For the moment, Mrs. Okafor's face was badly damaged. One eye was gone. Blood bubbled from her mouth. Her breathing became heavy. Groaning in pain, she gathered Godswill and his sisters and rushed toward her bedroom. Everywhere she passed became stained with blood. The white sofas, the walls, the floor, the bedroom. Everything turned red. Inside the room, she grabbed her small Nokia phone and attempted to call her husband. But her vision was fading. Blood covered her remaining eye. Her injured hand could barely hold the phone. The phone slipped from her fingers and fell. Her body began to fail. A deep cry escaped her lips. She rolled across the bed in agony, tearing down the mosquito net hanging above it. Then she slid behind the bedroom door and used her weakening body to wage the closed door so the attackers wouldn't get in. Outside, the armed robbers continued their attack. They fired repeatedly at the locks of the main entrance. Moments later, they broke into the house. Godswill's heart pounded violently. Quickly, he took his younger sisters into the bathroom. "Don't cry," he whispered. "Please be quiet." The little girls nodded through their tears. He closed the bathroom door and returned to his mother. She was still lying behind the bedroom door, struggling to breathe, still fighting. Blood continued flowing from her wounds. Godswill sat beside her. He didn't fully understand what was happening. He didn't know his mother was dying. He only knew he wanted her to get better. He wished he had picked up a table knife from the dining table so he could use it to fight back. If he did pick up a table knife, would he be able to fight back? Or would he make things worse? Meanwhile, the armed robbers searched the house, got into Godswill, elder brother's room, where he hid himself in the toilet, scattered everything in the room, lifted the mattress, scattered the box of clothes, scattered the wardrobe, but didn't notice the toilet door. Then they walked out of the room. Godswill, elder brother, remained in the toilet with fear in his heart. He kept praying. The armed robbers scattered furnitures in the house, searching for a briefcase where father usually kept his money. They gathered all the valuables they came across, threw belongings everywhere. They searched everywhere. Finally, they arrived at Mrs. Okafor's bedroom, but they couldn't open the door easily, because behind that door lay a dying pregnant mother, a mother who had sacrificed everything to protect her children. And outside that door were men with guns. What would happen next? Would Godswill and his sisters survive the night? Would help arrive before it was too late? Or was this only the beginning of a tragedy that would change their lives forever? To be continued. Thanks for watching. Kindly like the video, drop your comments, subscribe, and share. See you in the next chapter.